So if you haven't seen Severance before, or even if you have, this scene may be a little confusing. First glance, it might not particularly stand out or even seem that important. What if I told you that this is one of the most technically impressive scenes ever made? It's a lot like the rest of the show, where in isolation it doesn't make much sense, because Severance is a show layered with hidden meaning, and if you look a little deeper, there's a lot you can find.
So basically this is like our Zolly move that we used to show the transition from innie to outie or outie to innie.
Technically, this scene shouldn't be possible, at least not traditionally.
There was this piece of equipment called a bolt arm that we had actually experimented with in season 1 to do the severed transition and decided it was too big and kind of cumbersome. And it's a motion control robotic arm that can really do these precise moves with the camera. And it's a very big piece of equipment, but it has a long arm. And so basically this opening shot on Adam, if I was the base of the bolt arm, I'm here and it has an arm like this and it kind of goes around behind Adam as he walks out and pushes behind him.
Bolt arms have been around for the last 20 years, with some pretty famous shots being made with them, but as you can see, they're huge. Usually they're used in these huge open spaces because it's a giant metal arm just swinging around. But Severance's set isn't a huge open space. In fact, it's actually pretty small, so using one of these bolt arms is a logistical nightmare.
We don't like to use visual effects too much in the show in terms of creating backgrounds and environments, but we needed to for this shot because of the bolt arm taking up all this space. So really, like everything you see here behind Adam, this is all computer generated. And really, when he comes out, that's all green screen behind him. And then the bolt arm's going around Adam's head here, and then pushing behind him. This is all real, but then here, all of this is all computer generated behind Adam also.
And you did that because you needed that room?
Because the bolt arm is over here, and there's like a big piece of equipment the camera's on, so this all had to be recreated.
They aren't operated like a normal camera. If you want to move them, they have to be placed on a high-speed rail. And once they start, they can't stop because they're operated using choreographed movements, almost like a dance. But honestly, the bolt arm isn't even the most impressive part of this scene, because even if Severance's scene isn't huge, it's very complicated.
The 10 or so different pieces of this shot were done across 4 or 5 months, depending on when in the schedule we could fit it in with our specific setup of the hallway sets, because we usually keep all the hallways completely intact. It's almost like you're in a real maze of hallways. Our set is very claustrophobic and weird that way.
You often get lost on your way to set.
And even if it looks simple, filming this scene was a lot more complicated than it looks and required a ton of planning beforehand.
When we figured out what the run was going to be, we mapped it out on the sets that we have, sat down with Jessica Lee Gagne, our cinematographer, and Jeremy Hindle, our production designer, and started to think about how we could devise a shot that would take Mark through all these different hallways, this maze of hallways that we've never seen really, the route to wellness. Then we did what we call a previs, which is a sort of like a rudimentary animation of the shot. The visual effects team and us and our cinematographer, everybody, we all break the shot up into as many pieces as we need to complete it. We figure out, okay, for this part of the shot, there's no way we're going to be able to use a real set. We're going to have to pull out, all those walls. So we know we can't do that part until we have time to do that. So we'll do that in February. And this part we can do next week because we already have the set.
And even after planning it, the scene actually pulling it off would be its own challenge.
The next piece of the shot. So now we're on this sort of pogo stick gimbal that we had a great camera operator who was strong and tall and was chasing you down the hallway.
Why did you choose that rather than Steadicam?
It's just too hard to run this fast with a Steadicam because the Steadicam's connected to the waist of the operator on a whole gyroscope arm. It's very cumbersome. So to run full speed, it's easier for a cameraman to hold a lightweight camera on a kind of a stick that he can just literally be running full speed, chasing you.
Now, gimbal cameras are actually pretty small, at least compared to a Steadicam. Steadicams are generally used instead of gimbal cams because they're more stable and can capture basically any shot the cinematographer might want. Gimbal cams are pretty much only used during one shot, and that's coincidentally when the camera operator needs to run.
And now we're in POV and he swings around again on the pogo stick, pulling him. Right about here, it's going to transition to this shot. So like this shot and this shot are different. But you can't tell because our VFX people made sure to, fill it in between but also not blur it so it feels like you're not noticing that it's a different shot.
And even with the pretty advanced camera work, the Severance crew still had to hide a few clever cuts to make the scene seamless.
This is all real here, and then the second we come to right here, basically here now, this is all completely CG.
That's right.
Adam's running on a treadmill on a green screen stage with no set whatsoever. So the camera can actually get in front of him, but he's in place running on the treadmill.
And I actually had a harness so I could be running as fast as possible.
To match what you were doing in real life.
And yeah, and also just to not make it look like you're on a treadmill, because on a treadmill you start running at a set pace, but when you're running even as fast as you can, your pace is constantly changing, and it's a little weird, little uncanny valley thing that a viewer, something would feel off and artificial about it if we hadn't kind of corrected for that.
But once again, we're back to the bolt arm.
Now we're back on our bolt arm, and the camera's gonna do a crazy spin move around while Adam is countering, going the other way, to create this sense of just like, you know, where are we? This machine on the track had to have, because it's all motion control, which means the computer controls it, to really ramp up to your speed of running. That getting that timing right takes a number of takes.
Even with all the incredible technology and camera work, this shot was still a logistical nightmare.
Now that bolt arm, before when I stop and kind of look around, then look the other way as the bolt arms kind of, that took a while, I remember, to really perfect. And also it really helps just to do it over and over again, because what I wanted to try and do, and what I think we achieved, was with that kind of whip around and looking, and then when I finally kind of whip around and try to launch off and actually start running, it felt like we really wanted some momentum to start happening, and to have me and the camera kind of both be in sync to try and launch off together.
Breaking the shot up into different sections was really important, because once we had conceived of what it was going to be, it was really all about the logistics of getting the shot done.
It was a lot to shoot.
It's like, well, why can't he just be running down, you know, a couple halls and turn around and then he's there? And we always felt that we really wanted to kick off the season in a way that would be exciting and fun, and kind of give an indication of where we're going for season 2.
I don't think it's a stretch to say that Severance is one of the best shot TV shows that we've ever seen. I could spend hundreds of hours analyzing it, but this scene in particular, at least for me, stood out. And I hope that for you, now it does too.
You know, we want this to be something that delivers on a certain level. You know, a lot of the building blocks of the season have led up to this.
My name is Zach, and this has been Just One Scene.
I know we always knew this scene was going to happen. The change in that last shot on them, of them both kind of like going from like happy, flushed, excited, you know, filled with adrenaline.
Thank you for watching.